Chapter 1. Dropped like rented luggage. I woke up in a pile of hay with a goat chewing my hair. That's not a metaphor. An actual goat. Its breath smelled like sadness and moldy onions. Sir, I don't know what kind of fantasy world this is, but if you're my spirit guide, you're doing a crap job. I groaned, swatting at it weakly. It bleated and wandered off. Rude. I sat up, head spinning like a tavern wench on discount ale night. The sky above me was painfully blue, the kind of rich, storybook blue that said, yes, you've definitely been transported to another world where hot people ride horses and nobody flushes their toilets. Great. A quick inventory of my situation. No phone. No money. No clue how I got here. And oh look, no pants. Fantastic. My only asset was a dangerously oversized shirt that hung off one shoulder like I was auditioning for the role of sexy dying poet. It was giving cheap drama. I could work with that. Voices drifted toward me, villagers. Rough voices. Male. The tone was unmistakable. Annoyed men discovering a half-naked stranger behind their barn. Oh no you don't, I muttered, scrambling to my feet and limping toward the road like a very determined scarecrow. 10 minutes later I learned 3 things. Stealing bread is apparently punishable by flogging. Fantasy coins are heavy and unfairly distributed. My face could only get me so far before someone threw a boot at it. I ducked into an alley, clutching my stolen baguette like a newborn. I'd used my last weapon. A soulful wide-eyed, I'm just a poor traveler lost in your beautiful town, and been rewarded with a swift kick and a threat to cut off my thieving hands and seductive tongue. Seductive tongue? Noted. I need a plan, I told the alley cat perched above me. It blinked at me. I need money, food, shelter, and a powerful man willing to tolerate my personality. Preferably all at once. The cat sneezed and walked away. Thanks for nothing, mysterious alley oracle. Later that day, the solution to all my problems rode by on a black horse like a final boss cutscene. Jaw carved from moral restraint. Cheekbones so sharp I wanted to write poetry and die in the snow. That was him. The locals whispered his name like a threat. Duke Kalen Blackveil, ruler of this cold and cursed region. No wife, no warmth, no patience for fools. Perfect. Because I was an absolute fool with no shame and just enough beauty to be dangerous. Target acquired. I whispered to myself, adjusting my scandalously open neckline. Now all I had to do was seduce a man who looked like he'd rather gut a boar than hold hands. Easy. I leapt into action. And by action, I mean I very dramatically collapsed in front of his moving carriage. It worked. Sort of. The carriage screeched to a halt. I lay there, fluttering my lashes like a dying debutante. The door creaked open. I peeked with one eye. Tall, pale, wrapped in black velvet and nobility. His glare could curdle milk. Who let this idiot into my road? He asked, voice colder than tax season. My liege, your face. It's the first thing I saw after the light. Are you heaven? I whispered, reaching up like I was being raptured. Silence. He looked at the coachman. Run him over. What? 5 minutes later, I was thrown into a mud puddle with the elegance of tossed laundry. As the carriage rolled away, I coughed and yelled after it. You'll miss me when I'm gone. You emotionally repressed aristocrat. I waited. Nothing. I stood, soaked and shivering, but smiling, because I saw it. A flicker of hesitation, a twitch of his brow, a glance too long. He noticed me, and that was all I needed. Operation Marry Rich or Die Trying had officially begun. Chapter 2. Target acquired. Tall, rich, and emotionally unavailable. The Duke didn't kill me. That was progress. Sure, he tried to have me run over and then had me thrown into the street like I was yesterday's bathwater. But in noble speak, that was practically flirting. Most importantly, he'd looked at me, directly, with his very sharp, very furious eyes. That was all the invitation I needed. I returned to the Duke's estate the next morning like a badly sung love song. Bold, off-key, and completely unasked for. It rose ahead of me like something out of a tragic Gothic novel. Black stone, ivy-covered towers. I checked my reflection in a puddle. Still pretty. Still damp. All right, Kaylin. Let's see how cold your heart really is. I whispered, straightening my collar. I sauntered up to the gate with the confidence of a man who absolutely did not belong here and had no plan if things went wrong. A guard stepped forward. Helmet. Spear. No sense of humor. Halt, state your business. He barked. I'm here for the Duke. Blank stare. I've come to return his gaze. He looked into my soul yesterday and I must answer. I said, lowering my voice to a sultry whisper. The guard blinked. What? Love, that's my business, I said dramatically, clutching my chest. He looked personally offended by my existence. Get lost. I can't. I'm lost in him. I sighed. Behind him, the massive wrought iron gates slowly creaked open. We both turned. A different guard leaned out, muttering something into the first one's ear. He paled, glanced at me, and reluctantly stepped aside. Don't try anything stupid, he growled. I never try. Stupidity just comes naturally. I waltzed through before he could change his mind. The inside was worse, or better, depending on how you feel about excessive wealth and emotionally unavailable men brooding in castles. Everything was stone and shadow and taxidermy. The fireplace looked like it hadn't been used since joy was invented. A maid peeked out from behind a door, took one look at me and muttered, "Oh no, not again." Again? That means I've been here before. Okay, let's act like that. Where's your master? I asked, tossing my hair like it owed me rent. The staff didn't answer. They scattered like I was contagious. I spotted a grand staircase and took it two at a time, humming to myself. Maybe if I just kept walking, I'd find... Stop! That voice again. Low, cold, like distant thunder and emotional repression. I turned, grinning. There he was at the end of the hall, tall and furious in a perfectly tailored coat, like a vengeful snowstorm in human form. Kaylin, I gasped. He blinked. You? Remember my name? Of course I do. You're the only man who's ever looked at me like I was something to be scraped off his boots. It was unforgettable, I said, hand fluttering to my chest. He closed his eyes. I watched his jaw tense, like he was doing math in his head. Murder math. You were thrown out. By mistake. A misunderstanding. Like my entire life, I said. You faked fainting in front of my carriage. I tripped on destiny. You're not welcome here. Oh, I know. But I've never let that stop me before, I said, stepping closer. He stepped back. Just slightly. Victory. Do you want money? He asked. No, I lied. Then what? You, or at least your guest room and regular meals. Possibly also your affection, but we can pace ourselves, I said. You're insane, he said. Incorrect. I'm resourceful. You're rich. I'm broke. It's a beautiful dynamic, really? He sighed like the weight of the world had just gotten heavier. You can't stay here. I can. Because you haven't told anyone to throw me out yet, I said sweetly. He stared at me. I stared back. I smiled. He turned on his heel and walked away. I followed him. You're not going away, are you? He said without looking back. Not unless you pay me to leave. I could have you arrested. You could. But then you'd have to explain why a half-dressed man with a flirtation problem keeps appearing on your doorstep. The scandal. I agreed. He stopped at a heavy oak door and opened it. A guest room. Large. Cold. Lavish. You may stay here one night. One. No noise. No nonsense. He said. Define nonsense. No seduction attempts. No dramatics. No touching anything, especially me. Harsh, but fair. He fixed me with one last look. Stormy, sharp, unreadable, and then vanished down the corridor. I stepped into the room and shut the door. One night, please. I'd be here forever. Chapter 3. Theatrics and thin shirts. The bed was enormous, the fireplace was fake, and the sheets smelled like lavender and shame. I lay starfished in the middle of it, staring up at the ceiling and wondering how many people had died in this room. Probably at least 2, judging by the heavy drapes and the depressing art. Still progress. I was inside the Duke's house, in a bedroom, under his roof, with his very, very grumpy permission. This was seduction speedrun material. Unfortunately, I'd been locked in for the night like a mildly attractive prisoner. No bath, no food, just cold floors and colder silence. I did what any self-respecting freeloading beauty would do. I stripped down to the thinnest, most scandalously transparent shirt I could find in the wardrobe, which definitely wasn't mine, and sprawled on the window seat, dramatically illuminated by the moon. Maybe he'd walk by. Maybe he'd see me. Maybe he'd feel curious. He didn't. Not that night. Or the next. By day 3, I was getting desperate. My stomach was eating itself, and the only human contact I'd had was a maid who tossed bread at me like I was a feral raccoon. I'm not even allowed downstairs. I'm being kept like a pretty parrot. A decorative nuisance. I muttered, pacing in tight circles. Which, to be fair, I was. But I needed to escalate. So I went back to the window seat. Same thin shirt. This time, I opened the damn window, angled myself just right, and practiced my pained but pretty stare. Eventually, it paid off. Footsteps. Slow. Purposeful. Sharp like a sword dragged across marble. I didn't move. I could hear him outside the door. Pausing. Breathing. Then click. He opened it. Our eyes met across the dim room. Me, half-lit by moonlight and hunger. Him, fully cloaked in. I regret opening this door. You again, he said. Well, I live here now, this room is mine. So by ancient squatter's rights, that makes me your ward. Or maybe your kept boy, I said, fluttering my lashes. He stared. Put on real clothes. These are real clothes. They're sheer. Your fault for stocking the wardrobe with sinful fabric. What even is this? Cloud silk, I said. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him with ominous finality. I stood up from the window, slow, deliberate, every move calculated to provoke. I was a work of art, and this was my gallery showing. You haven't tried to seduce me in 2 days, he said, arms crossed. I was pacing myself. He raised a brow. Fine. I got tired of being thrown out of rooms. I admitted. He took 1 step closer. Then stop. Stop seducing you? Stop this, the games. The performance, he said, gesturing vaguely at all of me. I stepped closer. You think I'm annoying. I know you're annoying. But you haven't sent me away yet. He looked at me like he was trying to decide whether I was a puzzle or a plague. Then he turned and poured a glass of water from the pitcher near the hearth, because apparently ignoring people mid-confrontation was his favorite move. I let you stay out of convenience, he said. Convenient for who? He handed me the glass without looking. I took it, mostly because my mouth was dry and my dignity was in shambles. I drank. He watched. His eyes, gray, cold, distant, softened just slightly. Barely a flicker. But I saw it. You didn't answer my question, I said. I don't owe you answers. No, but maybe you want to give me one anyway. I agreed. He studied me for a long, long moment. Then, you're distracting. I know. I don't like it. Yet you're still here. He left. Again. I stood alone in the room, glass in hand, shirt clinging to my skin. I should have felt defeated. But I didn't. He'd cracked. Just a little. Enough to come into my room, to bring water, to linger too long. Obsession doesn't always start with lust. Sometimes it starts with a person you can't stop thinking about. And I could tell. I was starting to live in his mind, rent-free. Chapter 4. 1 bed, 2 idiots. There are exactly 3 things I never expected when I woke up in a goat pen after transmigrating. Becoming emotionally dependent on an emotionally stunted Duke. Getting locked inside his estate like a decorative hostage. Sharing a bed with said Duke because of logistical necessity. But here we were. It started with a storm. A dramatic, cliché, thunder-splitting the sky kind of storm. The kind that shook the windows and made the staff whisper about the curse of Black Veil. I was sitting in my usual dramatic position, by the window, rain clinging to my ridiculous nightshirt, when the door slammed open. The Duke stood there, wet, wind-whipped, brooding at maximum volume. "You," he said. "No greeting. Just you. Me. The one who lives in your guest room and your head." I agreed. He didn't even dignify that with a response. "There's a situation," he said. My brain short-circuited with hope. He finally snapped. "He's going to ravish me like a tragic villain." "Am I the situation? Do you need to punish me, my lord?" I asked, standing slowly. "No. There's flooding in the East Wing. You need to relocate," he said grimly. "Oh, wait, relocate where?" His jaw flexed. "My quarters are the only dry space available. Temporarily." I blinked. "You're letting me in your bedroom? Don't make it weird." "It's already weird. I came here to seduce you, not be accidentally assigned to you via plumbing failure." He turned and walked away without answering. I followed him like an emotionally unstable duckling. His room was exactly what I expected. Cold, immaculate, designed by someone who'd never emotionally recovered from childhood. Dark wood, black marble, a fireplace so pristine it had never seen a single happy flame. And in the center, one giant, ominous bed. I stood in the doorway very still. "So, do you have a cot or something?" "No." "Blankets on the floor?" "No." "You expect me to sleep next to you?" "No, I expect you to stay on your side, not talk, and not attempt any of your usual theatrics," he said. I took a step in. "Define my side." "Anywhere that isn't mine." Rude. Fake. We got ready for bed in silence. Or, well, he got ready. I posed dramatically by the window until he threatened to throw me out. I climbed into the bed first, curling into the far edge like a Victorian waif. He took the other side stiffly, fully clothed, back to me. The silence was brutal, the tension worse. My brain was screaming, "Do something, say something, be something." So naturally, I blurted, "Are you afraid of me?" He didn't move. "What?" "You never let me get too close. You freeze up if I touch your arm. You avoid eye contact when I'm shirtless." "I avoid eye contact because you're constantly shirtless." "That's evasion, not an answer." He shifted under the covers. "I'm not afraid of you." "Then what?" Another pause. His voice, when it came, was lower than usual. "You unsettle me." My breath caught. "Unsettle you? You talk too much. You move like you want to be seen. You make this house loud. Alive. I don't know what to do with that." I turned my head on the pillow, watching his back. "So, I'm not nothing to you. I never said you were." And that was the moment I felt it. The shift. The not quite love, not yet lust thing blooming in the dark like something dangerous and stupid. "You breathe loud," he muttered suddenly, ruining the vibe. I snorted. "That's my lungs working. You should try using yours for something other than sighing in judgment." He exhaled. Sharp, frustrated, almost a laugh. "I said no theatrics," he reminded me. I rolled over to face him. "I'm not performing right now." No, right now. I'm just a very tired, very cold boy who's been alone in a strange world and somehow ended up in bed with the one person who might be worth the mess." I whispered. Silence again. He didn't turn to face me, but he didn't leave, and he didn't tell me to stop. Somewhere past midnight, I felt the bed shift. A slow, cautious inching toward the center. Our backs almost touching. Not touching. Not yet. But close enough to feel it. That tiny, quiet magnetic pull between two people pretending not to care. And in the dark, I smiled. Because I knew I was getting under his skin. And he had no idea what to do about it. Chapter 5. Terms and conditions may apply. In the morning, I woke up to the smell of smoke, the sound of boots, and the overwhelming sensation that I had crossed some sort of invisible line in the night. I opened my eyes. He was already dressed. Tight, dark coat, silver embroidery at the collar, gloves half pulled on. The Duke, standing by the window like a painting someone forgot to finish emotionally. I watched him in silence for a moment, trying not to ruin the mood with my usual commentary. His hair was slightly mussed. His jaw was tense. and he hadn't run away screaming, even though we'd shared a bed all night. Progress. He turned. I smiled at him with the reckless optimism of someone who had no job, no money, and absolutely no shame. Morning, my liege. I regret everything, he said without blinking. Me too. Regret not rolling over and kissing you while you were sleeping. Missed opportunity, really? I said brightly. He sighed like my voice physically pained him. You can't keep staying here without terms. Oh no. Are we breaking up already? He ignored me, walked to a side table, pulled out a scroll, unfurled it like a cursed contract. This is an agreement, he said. You wrote me a contract? I had my steward draft it. You'll follow these terms if you wish to continue abusing my hospitality. I sat up in bed and stretched, making a very intentional noise of pleasure. His eye twitched. Read it, he said. I took the scroll with dramatic flair, cleared my throat, and began reading aloud. Clause 1. The guest shall refrain from entering the Duke's private chambers uninvited. This includes closets, baths, and emotional vulnerabilities. Clause 2. The guest shall not attempt seduction before breakfast. That's targeting me specifically, I said. Yes. I kept reading. Clause 3. No singing, dancing, weeping theatrically, or fainting for attention in public areas of the estate. So I'm allowed to cry in private? Discreetly. Clause 4. The guest will not refer to himself as the Duke's pretty little burden in front of staff. That only happened once. He stared. 3 times, I corrected. Clause 5. In exchange for food, lodging, and basic provisions, the guest will assist with correspondence, inventory, and wait what? I paused. You want me to work? He leaned back against the writing desk, arms folded, watching me like I was a fire he wasn't sure he should put out or feed. I'm giving you a role so you can stay here without pretending it's seduction, he said. Pretending, I repeated. I'm aware of what you're doing. Your entire presence is performance. You throw yourself at me for attention and call it survival. I don't blame you, but let's stop pretending you're here for anything real, he said. That hurt, more than I expected. I dropped the scroll onto the bed and stood, pulling the thin blanket with me out of spite. His gaze dropped, just for a second, then snapped back up. You think I don't know what I'm doing? I said. He didn't answer. Nothing. The silence was louder than yelling. I turned away. My heart was doing something annoying in my chest, like trying to crawl out and punch him. He cleared his throat. Clause 6. I turned. What? He stepped closer. Clause 6. The guest will remain under protection of the Duke so long as he abides by the above conditions. Any harm, threat, or insult to his person will be considered a direct offense to the House of Blackvale. My mouth opened, then shut. I have legal protection? You've made enemies, you're a liability. It's inconvenient if someone stabs you before breakfast, he said. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. He rolled his eyes, but there was color in his cheeks now. Barely, but I caught it. I'll sign your stupid contract, but I'm adding one clause, I said, grabbing the quill. He raised a brow. Clause 7. The Duke must smile at least once a week in my presence, or I will assume he's plotting my murder and act accordingly. You think I'm smiling material? No, I think I'm smile material. You just haven't admitted it yet, I said. I signed the parchment with a flourish and a heart. He crossed the heart out, but he didn't throw me out. He didn't take it back. And when I left the room with the scroll tucked under my arm and a dangerous little grin on my face, I heard him whisper to himself. Clause 8. Never trust a pretty disaster. Too late, darling. You already do. Chapter 7. The Ball and the Breakdown. You know how sometimes you dream about walking into a ballroom looking flawless and everyone gasps like you're a comet made of sex and scandal? This was not that moment. This was me in too tight shoes, wearing borrowed silk, being paraded like a prize lamb at an aristocrat's gala, half high society, half meat market, and all of it under his watchful eye. Smile, even if it's fake. Kalen murmured at me before we stepped through the grand doors. I only do fake. He didn't respond. Just placed his hand on the small of my back like it was a leash and gently nudged me forward into a sea of jewels, wine, and judgment. The ballroom was overwhelming. Gilded chandeliers, velvet drapes, people who looked like they'd never blinked without permission. Every head turned when we entered. Every whisper was a dagger made of silk. Is that him? The stray the Duke picked up? He's pretty. In that desperate sort of way. I held my head high. Fake it harder. Kalen didn't speak. Didn't introduce me. Didn't defend me. He just stood beside me like a statue, letting me drown under the weight of his silence. I tried to play the part. Flirted with a viscount. Laughed too brightly at a baroness's snide comment. Swirled my wine like I belonged. But it cracked. God, it cracked fast. Because someone called me a whore. Not directly, of course. That would be too human. Too honest. No. It came in a tight little smile from a smug noble with a jewel-crusted collar and two perfect teeth. You must be quite talented to keep the Duke's attention so long. Most of his staff don't last a week, he said, swirling his drink. Maybe I'm just charming. Or maybe you know how to beg properly. The room laughed. I smiled. I smiled so hard my jaw ached. I made a joke. I turned it into a bit. Everyone laughed again. But I wasn't laughing. I left the ballroom before the music started. Not running. Just walking quickly, like I needed to throw up something invisible. Behind the doors, the corridor was cold. Empty. Safe. I pressed my back to the wall and exhaled. I wanted to scream. Or cry. Or tear off the stupid silk shirt that didn't fit right across my chest. Nothing did. Not in this world. Not even me. I slid down the wall, pulling my knees up, hiding my face. Stop it. I muttered to myself. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're beautiful, said a voice behind me. I flinched. Kalen. He stood a few feet away, gaze unreadable, tension bleeding off him in waves. Not right now, I said sharply, not looking at him. He stepped closer. You didn't deserve that. Didn't I? I threw myself into your life like a damn firework and expected not to get burned. I laughed. Bitter. Stop it. I don't belong here. I don't even belong anywhere. I'm just a pretty parasite and you're too cold to kick me out properly. I said stop. He was in front of me now, kneeling. Eyes dark and sharp and something else. Something dangerous. You let them say those things, you just stood there. I whispered. I couldn't say anything without making it worse. But you wanted to, didn't you? His silence was answer enough. Then why didn't you? Because if I defended you, I would have had to explain what you are to me, he said. The air went still. And I don't know how to explain it. I only know that I hate seeing you cry. I hate hearing you laugh like that. And I hated every single person in that room for looking at you like you were something they could afford. He said. My heart stuttered. Is this pity? I asked. No, this is possession, he said, so fiercely it startled me. He reached out, slow, careful, and touched my cheek. I've never wanted to own anything in my life until you, he said. I should have run. Should have thrown up a wall or a witty line or something. Instead, I leaned into his hand. And for one quiet, terrifying moment, I let him hold me. Not as a prize, not as a burden, but as something that mattered. Chapter 8. Touch me. I dare you. I told myself it meant nothing. That his hand on my cheek was just impulse. That his words, I've never wanted to own anything in my life until you, were just poetic neurosis from a man whose soul had never seen sunlight. I told myself a lot of things that night. None of them held up when he followed me into the drawing room and locked the door behind him. The fire was low, the kind of orange glow warmth that made shadows crawl up the walls like ghosts. I sat on the chaise, arms crossed tightly over my chest, because otherwise I was going to say something idiotic like, take me now, or hold me like I'm yours. He didn't speak at first, just stared at me from across the room. His coat was off, his collar unbuttoned. For once, he didn't look like a perfect duke or a polished statue. He looked human, fractured, hungry in a way that had nothing to do with food. I can leave if I'm getting too close, I offered. He flinched like I'd struck him. No, you're not the problem, he said. Then what is? You change things, he said again, voice quieter this time. I tilted my head. That sounds like a confession. That sounds like a threat, he muttered. I stood up. Slowly. He watched every movement like I was a weapon unsheathing itself. Touch me if you're so afraid of wanting it. Then do it. Prove you can survive it, I said. He stayed frozen. So I crossed the room, step by step, barefoot on cold stone, every inch of me soft and exposed in silk. I stopped inches away, lifted his hand and pressed it against my collarbone. His fingers curled instinctively, like they knew me better than he did. His breath hitched. I could feel it. You want control, but I'm not something you can rule. Not something you can put in a cage. I whispered. I don't want to rule you. Then what do you want? He said nothing, but he didn't let go. His hand moved, up my throat, across my jaw, reverent, like I was something sacred and not completely unhinged. He was closer now, one breath away, his expression unreadable, but his eyes told the truth. They were full of hunger and grief and something far worse. Hope. You don't know who I really am, I said. I don't care. You should. I don't, he said, and then he kissed me. It wasn't soft. It was desperate, hungry, furious. He kissed me like he hated me for needing me, like if he could consume me, he would. And God, I let him. I tangled my fingers in his shirt, dragged him closer, bit down on the silence we'd been living in for weeks. I kissed him like I was still trying to survive. His hands roamed. My waist, my back, my face. He broke first, pulled back, breathless. This is a mistake, he whispered. I know, I said, but I don't want to stop. Then don't. We stood there, forehead to forehead, two disasters too stubborn to fall apart properly. My heart was loud, my mouth was raw, and something deep in my chest felt terrifyingly warm. Because for the first time since waking up in this world, I didn't feel alone. I felt claimed. Chapter 9. Rent paid in full. I woke up before he did. Not on purpose. I think my body just wasn't used to feeling safe. Though calling this safe was a stretch. My body ached in new places. My neck was covered in evidence. And the sheets smelled like a war had been fought and lost here. But God's, he was beautiful in sleep. Kalen Blackveil, the man who hadn't smiled once since I met him, now lying next to me with one hand still curled loosely around my hip like I might vanish if he let go. I sat up slowly, careful not to wake him. My robe was on the floor. My pride was somewhere between last night's desperation and this morning's reality. This was the part they never tell you about, the morning after the fantasy, when the lights come back on and you realize you're still a guest in someone else's life. I slipped out of bed. It wasn't graceful. My legs gave out for a second and I hissed through my teeth. Serves you right. You reckless, emotional iceberg. I muttered at the bed. He didn't stir. Good. I needed time. Space. Something to think with that wasn't my mouth or my hips. I found my shirt from the night before and pulled it on. Half-buttoned. Still smelled like sweat and him. I hated that I liked it. I wandered to the window and pushed it open. The morning was gray and wet. Blackveil always looked like a place designed for ghosts and tragic endings. Maybe that's why I fit so well. The door creaked. I didn't turn. You're awake, Kalen said behind me. I shrugged. I don't sleep in other people's beds well. A pause. You didn't say much last night, I added. I said everything I meant to. You sure? Because we could always call a steward in and draft a formal statement. Another pause. Then, don't do that. Do what? Use jokes to cover up the fact that you're scared. I turned to face him. I'm not scared, I said. Yes, you are. You're terrified this was just a transaction, he said. I flinched. Bullseye. I walked toward the bed slowly, arms crossed. You never said what it was, I said. I thought I did. You said don't stop. That's not love. That's not even affection. That's impulse. And you came here for money, so what did you want to hear? That I'm yours now? That I'll give you everything? What would make you feel less like a thief and more like a person again? He said. That one landed too deep. It hit bone. I sat on the edge of the bed, facing away from him. I wanted to know if I was still just the pretty thing who flirts for food. You were never just that, he said. I didn't answer. I've wanted you since the moment you mocked me in the rain. I just didn't know how to have you without destroying us both. He continued. I turned slowly. You didn't destroy me. No, but I could. And you know that. He said. I looked at him for a long time. No. I think what scares you more is that I could destroy you, I said. He didn't deny it. I crawled back into the bed, slow, deliberate. He didn't stop me, just watched. I pressed a kiss to his collarbone, then his throat, then his jaw. You're mine now, you know, I whispered. I've always been, you just hadn't realized. He said, voice rough. We didn't say the word. Not yet, but it sat there between us. Heavy, waiting, love. It wasn't dressed up in flowers or promises. It looked like bruised lips and quiet mornings. And maybe that was enough. Chapter 10. You're not just pretty, you're mine. It started with the gloves. Black leather, absurdly expensive. Wrapped in silk. Dropped on my pillow like a declaration. First, I thought it was a gift. Then came the boots. Custom fitted. Polished so sharp I could see my reflection. Which was unsettling because I hadn't brushed my hair. Then the tailored shirts. High-collared, covered, subtle, expensive, strategically modest. Then the rule. You don't go into town without an escort. I laughed at first. I'm not a princess. I can handle myself, I said, rolling my eyes. Kaylin didn't blink. I didn't say you couldn't. Then what, is it a safety thing? Is someone after me? Did I accidentally seduce the wrong baron again? It's not about them, he said. His voice was calm, even. Scared me more than yelling would've. It's about you and what's mine, he added. The next day, the staff stopped looking at me like a houseguest and started bowing. I wasn't officially anything. Not titled, not wed, not even acknowledged. But the whisper had started. He's the Duke's kept boy, the pet, the favorite. And Kaylin didn't deny it. That night he came to bed late. I was curled in his massive chair, reading a book I couldn't follow, waiting like a damn wife. He walked in, pulled off his coat, and set something down on the table beside me. Jewelry. A chain. Black metal. Intricate. Dangerous. What's that? I asked, already knowing. A collar. For nobles. It's called a house sigil chain. It means you're under my protection. He said. I laughed, but it cracked in the middle. Wow. Straight from street rat to branded property. My parents would be so proud. He didn't laugh. Put it on, he said. I stared at him. You're serious. I've never been anything else. And what happens if I say no? He was quiet. Then, you won't. I didn't. Not because I agreed. Not because I liked being owned. But because when he fastened it around my throat, hands gentle, lips parted like he was holding back every truth he couldn't say, I didn't feel trapped. I felt seen. Later, in bed, I rolled to face him. You didn't used to be like this, I said. Like what? Possessive, controlling, stupidly tender. He blinked. You think I'm tender? I smiled. You haven't murdered me yet. That's tenderness in your language. He looked at me, and something in his face changed, softened. You're not just pretty, he said. It was almost quiet enough to miss. You're mine. I kissed him before I could fall apart. I told myself I could still walk away, that this wasn't real, that I wasn't falling for a man who looked at me like I was a crown he didn't deserve but refused to give up. But then I touched the chain at my neck, and I knew I'd already chosen. Chapter 11. The Price of Affection. The offer came in a gold-lined envelope, delivered with a smile that didn't reach the eyes. I was sitting in the Duke's greenhouse, halfway through pretending to care about rare winter roses, when a tall man in noble blue set a letter beside my tea. I blinked at it, then at him. I don't accept fan mail in person, Unless it comes with a muffin, I said, giving him a lazy grin. He didn't flinch, just bowed. A private invitation from Lord Sir Evan, he said. I froze for exactly 1 second. Sir Evan, Kaelin's political rival. Rumored to be charming, cruel, and very, very rich. Invitation to what? I asked. The man smiled, finally. To negotiate your value. I didn't tell Kaelin that night. I hid the letter in the sleeve of my robe and smiled through dinner. Let him pour my wine. Let him brush my shoulder with his hand and call me his like I wasn't thinking about betrayal with every slow heartbeat. I hated myself for not throwing it into the fire. But I didn't, because for the first time since arriving in this world, I wanted to know, what was I worth? If Kaelin's affection was real, or just something I'd earned through skin and charm. So the next morning I went. Lord Saravan's estate was everything Kaelin's wasn't. Warm, golden, full of music and mirrors. A stage. He greeted me with open arms, like an actor meeting a rival star. You're lovelier in person, no offense. Portraits don't capture mischief, he said. I'm not a portrait. I'm a parasite with expensive taste, I replied. He laughed. Honest. No wonder Kaelin keeps you so close. I wanted to punch him. Instead, I took the wine he offered and sat like I wasn't ready to bolt. Why am I here? I asked. Because everything has a price, and he hasn't paid yours yet. He laid it out in plain words. Gold, land, a manor of my own, a lifetime of luxury. All I had to do was one thing. Seduce Kaelin just a little further. Just enough to learn what he was hiding. His alliances, his weaknesses, the political leverage no one else could reach. In return, I'd be free, comfortable, untouchable. I laughed, but it didn't sound right, because deep down a part of me, a hungry, broken part, considered it. That part that remembered sleeping on stone floors, that remembered begging for crumbs and waking up alone in a stranger's world. That part whispered, you didn't come here for love. You came to survive. And for a second, I believed it. I returned to the Duke's estate that night with the letter still in my coat. I didn't look at him when I walked in. Just nodded, smiled, lied, rode through town, bought candied plums, got followed by an old goat. He laughed quietly. Sounds like a normal day, but I could feel it. The weight of the secret in my pocket. The way his eyes lingered on mine. Like he knew something was off, but didn't want to say it yet. Because that's the thing about Kaelin. He didn't trust easy. But once he did, he trusted completely. And now I was poison in his bed. That night, I stood by the fire while he undressed. He looked at me, shirt half open, hair falling over his brow. You're quiet, he said. I shrugged. Just thinking. About what? I looked at him. This man who had offered me nothing sweet and given me everything real. And I did something I didn't plan. I pulled the letter from my coat, walked over, and dropped it on the table. He looked down at it, then up at me. What is this? An offer, to betray you, I said. His expression didn't change. Did you accept? No, but I didn't throw it away either. I needed to know if I was worth anything without your name on me, I said. And? He asked, voice like a blade. I looked up at him. I was, but I didn't want it. Another silence. Then he stepped forward, grabbed me by the jaw, not hard, just enough to make sure I couldn't look away. You could ruin me and I'd still crawl back to you, he said. Don't say things like that. I whispered. Why not? Because I might believe you. He kissed me, and it wasn't desperate this time. It was slow, solid, like a vow he hadn't spoken out loud yet. And I kissed him back because I wanted to believe it too. Chapter 12. Abandon me and I'll burn the world, came wrapped in static. A hum in the walls, a flicker in the candles, a headache blooming sharp and sudden behind my eyes. Magic. I hadn't felt it like this before. Alive, pulsing, calling. I was halfway through dressing when the knock came. I opened the door and a man stood there. Robes like ink, eyes like clockwork. Your tether to the old world is fraying. The portal will open soon. If you want to go back, you have to choose now, he said. I didn't speak. Couldn't. He placed a crystal shard in my palm. It pulsed against my skin like a second heartbeat. Use it before the moon dies or be trapped here forever, he said. And just like that, he was gone. I stared at the shard for a long time. Go back. Back to bills. To loneliness. To cold pizza and colder mornings and wondering if anyone would ever look at me the way he does. But that was my world. My timeline. My home, right? So why did this feel like death? I didn't tell Kalen. I tried. I opened my mouth 3 times that evening. He kissed my shoulder, brought me wine, draped a blanket over my legs while I read, and I couldn't do it, because I knew exactly how he'd look at me, like I was choosing to leave him, and I didn't want to see that expression, ever. I went to the cliffside at midnight. The shard in my hand glowed bright now. Hungry, the portal would open any second, and I stood there, shaking, heart clawing at my ribs. I don't want to go, I whispered. But I didn't throw the shard away either, because some terrible part of me still wanted the choice, the safety of the exit sign. And that's when I heard him. You were going to leave. I froze, turned. Kalen stood a few feet away, hair wild, shirt half unbuttoned like he'd run straight from sleep to fury. You lied to me. Kalen. No, don't. His voice cracked like thunder. You were just going to vanish? After everything? After me. I would have torn this world apart for you. I am tearing it apart. Every day I let you crawl under my skin, and you still want to run, he said. It's not about you. It's always been about me, everything is. You made it that way. He snapped. I didn't ask for any of this. But you took it, you took my home, my patience, my body, my heart. And now you're acting like it's nothing. He growled. I stepped forward. It's not nothing. Then prove it. I held up the shard. The light flared. This is the last piece of my old life. Everything I used to be. I said. Then let it go. I'm scared. I know, so am I, he said. I looked at him. This man who had started as a mark. Who had become something terrible and beautiful and mine. And I threw the shard. Hard. It shattered against the rocks below. Gone. Kalen didn't speak. Just pulled me into his chest like he was afraid I'd dissolve. I clung to him like I already was. You're staying? He whispered. Yes. He shook his head, breath rough against my neck. If you ever try to leave again, you'll burn the world? I'll follow you through it. I laughed, wet, exhausted. You're insane. I'm yours, he said. And this time I believed him. Chapter 13. Death of an Exit Plan. You'd think destroying the only magical exit from your original universe would feel liberating. But it felt like vomiting up a future you were never going to have anyway. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in Kalen's bed, back to him, eyes open, watching moonlight crawl up the wall like guilt with a deadline. Every breath I took felt too loud, too final, like I'd locked myself into a body that wasn't mine. Forever. The next morning it started. At first it was a flicker, a faint ringing in my ears, like someone had left a curse running under my skin. Then the vertigo, then the blood, just a little, a nosebleed, a warning. The magic was unraveling. Kalen found me in the hallway. He took one look at my face, white as paper, blood smeared on my sleeve, and froze. What happened? I'm fine, I lied. He crossed the space between us in 2 strides, touched my chin, tilted my head. His thumb brushed the blood on my cheek. You're not fine. I've been worse. Don't joke. I met his eyes. I stayed. And the world's punishing me for it. I whispered. We called the court mage. Old skeletal, dressed like a bat that studied too hard. She examined me like I was a riddle on fire. He doesn't belong here, she said. The tether between worlds was keeping him stable. Now that it's broken, she trailed off. Kalen's jaw flexed. Say it. He'll fade, piece by piece, until he's nothing. My stomach dropped. Fade? I asked. What does that mean? Disappear? Die? She looked at me with something close to pity. Yes. He didn't speak for a long time after she left. Just sat in the library, staring at the fire like he could set time backwards with pure willpower. I knelt beside his chair. I chose this, I said. You don't get to blame yourself. He looked down at me slowly, eyes burning, voice quiet. I should have told you not to. You wouldn't have meant it. No, he admitted. But at least I could have lied. I started weakening after that. Little things first. Stumbling on stairs, forgetting names, dreaming in colors I didn't recognize. My fingers sometimes disappeared for seconds at a time. Just gone like static. Like the world was buffering me. And every time I vanished for even a heartbeat, I saw it in his face. Panic, rage, grief, clawing up his spine like it had teeth. The night it almost happened for good, we were in his study. I was reading aloud to him to distract myself, voice cracking over the edges of a poem I couldn't finish. I blinked, and suddenly I wasn't solid. I felt it, like being held together with glass threads that someone had started to snip. Kalen, I gasped. He caught me before I hit the floor, held me like I was already gone. Don't you dare, he said, voice breaking. Don't you fucking dare. He carried me to the ancestral altar in the West Wing. I barely registered the stone, the old relics, the way the air thrummed like a scream caught in a bottle. He laid me on the altar and pulled something from his coat. Pendant, ancient, dark metal twisted around a glowing stone. What? I whispered, barely conscious. A soul anchor, one of the last. I had it locked away. He said, no. Yes. Kalen, it's bound to your bloodline. You'll lose. I don't care. You'll age. You'll feel pain. Your magic will. I said I don't care, he snapped. Let the gods take it. Let the world burn. I won't lose you. He held the pendant over my chest, whispered something in a language I didn't know. Maybe not even from this world. The stone glowed. It hurt. Gods, it hurt. Like my body was tearing open just to make space for something that didn't belong. And then, stillness, silence, warmth. I was breathing again, solid again, alive. When I opened my eyes, he was kneeling at the altar, blood dripping from his nose, shaking. Kalen, I'm fine, he rasped. I sat up. My hands were real. The world held me. I touched his face. You're insane. No, I'm yours, he said. And this time it wasn't desperation. It was devotion. Chapter 14. Seduced, claimed, kept. It's been 3 months since I almost ceased to exist. Which, by the way, is not a fun thing to put on your relationship timeline. When did you two fall in love? Oh, right after I nearly blinked out of existence and he sacrificed 1/3 of his soul to tether me to this world. Real casual stuff. These days, I don't wake up afraid. I wake up to warmth. To Kalen's arms wrapped around my waist like he's still terrified I'll disappear. To soft sunlight filtered through heavy curtains. To his voice, low and rough with sleep, murmuring things like, you stole the covers again, you little demon. To safety, I stretch in bed and kick at him lightly. You snore. I inform him. You lie. He replies without opening his eyes. I have evidence. The maid walked in yesterday and thought a bear had broken in. She should have checked the mirror then. Rude. This is why no one flirts with you at parties. No one flirts with me, he says, eyes opening slowly, because you glare at them like you're about to bite their fingers off. I pretend to gasp. Are you accusing me of being possessive? I'm accusing you of being mine. I melt a little, just enough for him to notice. He smirks. Bastard. We don't live like royalty. Well, okay, we technically do. But our days are filled with much less drama and slightly more absurd domesticity than you'd expect. He works in the study. I steal his robes. I haunt the halls like a scandalous ghost who forgot his pants. Sometimes I help with correspondence, signing his letters with ridiculous flourishes. Other times, I sit in his lap and make him late for meetings. He grumbles, but he never tells me to stop. He likes being interrupted by me. There are still whispers in the court. About the pretty boy who seduced the Duke. About the spell I must have cast. But no one says it to my face anymore. Because Kalen made it very clear what happens to people who insult what's his. One night, I find him in the library. Same chair, same book he always pretends to be reading. I crawl into his lap without warning. He doesn't flinch. He just sets the book down and wraps his arms around me. Bored? He asks. Restless? I whisper. You didn't kiss me today. He hums low in his throat, leans in, and presses his lips to mine. Slow, certain. I'd never forget that, he says against my mouth. Good, I murmur. Because I'd haunt you. You already do. Later, in the dark, I lie next to him with my head on his chest. He's warm beneath me, steady. I never asked, I say softly, why you saved me. He brushes his fingers through my hair. You didn't have to. I want to hear it. He's quiet for a long time. Then, because I've lost things before. People, time, pieces of myself. And none of them ever fought to stay. He tilts my chin up, looks at me. But you did. I blink, heart stuttering. You were never meant to be here, he continues. But the moment you chose me over everything else, I knew I'd never let you go. I kiss him, not because I need to, but because I want to, because I'm not pretending anymore, because this us was never just seduction. It was gravity, and maybe I came here for rent money, but I stayed for love. Messy, ridiculous, obsessive love. And if I had to do it all over again, I'd throw myself in front of his carriage all over again, with even more flair.